everyone. Today I'm sharing with you the April 2019 Scrappin' for Less Flavor of the Month card kit. This month's kit features Spring Critters is the theme. And here I'm quickly showing you the collections that I got. This is collection 1. The double-sided pattern paper is called Springtime Paper by Scrappin' for Less. The stamp is by Sunny Studio Stamps. It's called Just Because. I also got some yellow ribbon and I got some bumblebee stickers. So jumping right into card 1, I'm using collection 1 and I'm going to follow sketch number 4. I've die cut all of my panels ahead of time so that I can save just a little bit of time. That gorgeous pink polka dot paper was die cut with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. And then that pretty springtime paper was die cut with an MFT stitched rectangle die. Here I took that pattern paper and I've used the In the Navy cardstock by Gina K, and I've used that as a mat, and then I just trimmed it off with my paper trimmer. I've stamped and Copic colored my image onto a small panel, and then I'm just using my pencil to draw in some, like a tree branch. Once I drew it in with a pencil, I went ahead and erased it. I could still see the indentation, or the impression rather, of the pencil, and so I'm just tracing that now with my EK Tools journaling pen. I'm not an artist by any stretch of the imagination, so basically I'm just drawing in lines here. And once I colored the branch in, it looks much better. So working on the sentiment, I'm taking a piece of that in the navy cardstock from the kit, and I'm taking the sentiment from the Banana Split collection. This is the sentiment by Scrappin' for Less. It reads, "Stay beautiful." And then I've used my Versamark ink to stamp that in, and then I will heat set that with white embossing powder. So here are my components and I've got them ready to go. I'm taking the largest panel and I'm using some liquid adhesive, and then I will add that to my card base. My second pattern paper that I've matted with the navy cardstock, I'm centering that just off to the right, and then my front panel with my little bees have also been matted with that same blue cardstock. Now in this sketch there is a banner that sits across that top left corner. I'm just using some twine from my stash and I'm gonna secure that into the corners of behind that very first panel that I adhered. And because it's liquid adhesive, I still have a moment or two where it's not completely set, and so I was able to pull up that panel and just tuck that cord back in. And instead of pennant banners, I'm adding the bumblebee stickers in their place. At this point, the only thing left to do was to add my sentiment, and that completes my first card. So here's a look at the second collection. The second collection features the bird stamp by Pink Fresh, some ephemera pieces by Pebbles, the Sequin Mix by Scrappin' for Less, and then these are the Journey of the Heart papers by Gina K Designs. These are single-sided papers and they're gorgeous. For the second card, I'm using Collection 2 and following sketch number 1. And as usual, I have all of the panels die cut and ready to go. I've got the largest panel die cut with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. And then that strip of the pattern paper is cut to about 3 inches across. And then I just measured out the red cardstock to be just slightly bigger than that pattern paper. I've got the two pieces adhered together, and then I can adhere them to the back panel on a slight angle. I took a piece of Kraft cardstock from one of the previous kits, and I've die cut it using a square stitch die. And then I'm going to pull out that stamp set and I'm going to stamp that directly on. I'll use my Misty in order to get a good impression and stamp it a couple of times if I need to. For this little stamp, I tried coloring it first and it turned out awful. So I decided I would just stamp it using colored ink, and for this one I'm using Lawn Fawn Blue Jay ink, and it tied in perfectly to the pattern paper in the background. Now for the sentiment, I am using the sentiment from the banana split level, and I have no problem cutting up my sentiment stamps. They'll work just fine after. So I'm going to stamp the sentiment directly on that tiny panel, and I've treated my panel with some anti-static powder tool, and then I'm inking up the sentiment with Versamark, and then I will white heat emboss that sentiment on there. I've trimmed up the panel, and now I'm ready to start adhering my components together. I do have that little panel popped up on some foam tape, and then I'm adhering the banner across the top of that, and then the side banner I'm using my T-square ruler to help me line it up straight. And I've just got some liquid adhesive on that banner, and then I can just pop that right into place and adhere the top portion of it across. Now in the sketch there are some embellishments in that underneath that square panel, so I just thought I'd use the sequins from the collection, and I'm adhering those in place with some glue dots. And that will finish off my second card once I adhere the panel to a card base. So for collection number 3, in this collection you get some paper flowers. There's also wood butterflies, and I also happen to get some flower butterflies. The sequin mix is by Scrappin' for Less, and then this adorable little stamp is Totally Terrific by Scrappin' for Less, and then of course the pattern papers also by Scrappin' for Less. I'll show you one side and then I'll flip over to show you the second side. And this was my absolute favorite card from this kit that I made. I've got the pattern papers already die cut, and I picked out some teal colors that just happens to be one of my favorite colors. that strip of pattern paper is about 2 3/4 inches across, and I'm just adhering that to the largest panel. And then I take some peel off stickers from my stash and I'm adding them to the either side of that panel just to sort of finish off the edge. Once I have them in place, I just cut off the excess and I do save it for another time. And then working on the sentiment. The sentiment reads, "Don't let life's puddles get you down." And I am using a piece of black cardstock that I've die cut, and I'm using my Versamark to stamp that down, and then I will set that with some white embossing powder. Now to adhere that piece of vellum that I've die cut from a rounded corner rectangle die, something like that, I'm using my Xyron sticker, and that panel was just a smidgen larger than my space, so I just kind of tucked it in there and forced it in there and got adhesive on most of that background. And you can't tell that that panel has any adhesive on it because I know sometimes adhering vellum is tricky. So I finally go ahead and use some of that ribbon from the first collection, and I'm using it across the top of this panel. I've added some strong double-sided adhesive, and I'm gonna just tape that right into place, or tape the ribbon right over it into place. And then I'm using some thin foam strips to add to the sentiment so that I can pop it up over that ribbon. And I've got my little scene all arranged, and I can go ahead and start adhering those elements down. Some of the elements are adhered directly down onto the card panel, and then the little froggies, I decided I'm going to pop them up on some foam tape, and I add those in place and just pop them as if they're jumping off of the lily pad. And my second little frog, he also goes on some foam tape. And then the two little butterflies, I just kind of adhere flat down to the panel. For some finishing touches, I use my Spectrum Noir glitter overlay pen, and I add glitter to everything. I add it to the butterflies, I add it to the frogs, I add it to the lily pad, I think. I'll just glitter everything over. And that will complete the third card. Okay, so in collection number 4, you get some tags. These are foil tags by K & Company, a sequin mix, and some stickers by Sticko, this adorable little stamp by Scrappin' for Less, and then the pattern papers are also by Scrappin' for Less, and they're just so stinking cute. So the inspiration behind this card was those cloud stickers, and when I saw them I immediately thought shaker card. And you may have heard me say that shaker cards are not my jam, but I am bound and determined to figure it out. So anyway, I've got the panel that is going to be top of my shaker card cut out with a stitched rectangle die, and then I've temporarily adhered the strip across, and then I will use a oval die to die cut both of the panels together. So once I have that die cut, I basically have my opening for my shaker and my top panel. Next, I'm tracing the opening of that shaker with a pencil as a guide, and then I can start working on adhering the acetate to the top of the panel. I just used some really strong double-sided adhesive for that. Okay, so here's where I make a bit of a blunder. I should have erased those pencil lines before I added the foam tape, but I didn't. And once that foam adhesive is on there, the sides of that are sticky. They're going to remain sticky no matter how much anti-static powder I've added. So when I went to erase the pencil lines, all of those eraser shavings, I think they're called, sort of stick to the sides of that shaker well. It does take some effort on my part to clean that up, but I do manage, and so I've got it in my memory bank for next time not to do that. Anyhow, I've got the foam tape all across the entire card base, and I've got my shaker bits all inside their little space. And once I remove the backing of the foam tape, I cheat a little bit, and I'm going to add some liquid adhesive to that foam tape because I feel like it gives me just a smidgen of a moment or two of room to adhere it straight, to adhere the top panel straight. And that has always been one of my struggles. I always struggled to join those two panels together correctly. So this little trick just makes it easier for me. And I've got those two panels joined together straight, and I can give my shaker card a go to make sure nothing falls out. And it didn't. Anyway, I've got a piece of black cardstock that I've cut using a Lawn Fawn banner die. And I've just added some white polka dots across it just to sort of tie in the sentiment strip. So I'm starting to add my components to the panel. The cloud sticker, the one that sort of inspired the shaker, I've adhered it down, partially covering the opening of the shaker, and then I just trimmed off the excess that would be visible past that frame that I'm adding. Before I do that, I'm going to adhere the black card panel, or I'm sorry, banner, and I'm just using some liquid adhesive to adhere that down, and then I can add some liquid adhesive to that striped strip and add that in place, and then pop in my frame just to finish off the edges. I've got my little ducky all colored up, and I do pop him up with some foam tape and add him to the right corner or right side of the opening. And then my sentiment, which reads "Have a Ducky Day," I've stamped it onto a piece of black cardstock and I white heat embossed it. Now I don't show you, but in the end I do add the other two stickers to my card, and I think it finishes it off a little bit more and it looks better. So here are all the cards that I made using this kit. Let me know which one is your favorite. I'm definitely loving the shaker and the little frogs. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.